So we're on some platforms, but not all.
We're ready to go.
Okay. Okay, good. Good evening. This is a select board town meeting related to the COVID-19 virus that is racking the country and including Brookline. We'll be taking questions from the audience by Twitter, email, and Facebook Live. So if you have questions for the select board or the appropriate town officials, please provide them through those means. I'd like to start off by saying that we have put up a new BrooklineCovid19.com webpage, which is an improvement over the existing webpage, and will have a lot more information for people who want to understand what's going on here in Brookline, as well as information on general aspects of the COVID-19 virus and how it's impacting this country and the rest of the world. I'd like to start off before we get into questions and before we ask our state representative, Tommy Vitolo, to say a few words regarding the state's actions with respect to this crisis, that Ms. Hamilton and Mr. Fernandez have agreed to work with other town leaders on what is currently called a Community Leadership Roundtable, which is designed to, or the purpose of which is to coordinate the many voluntary activities going on in the community in support of especially vulnerable members of our community, both youth, elderly, and others who need the type of assistance and attention that our task force, COVID-19 task force, may not be able to provide. Secondly, to coordinate communication with respect to this evolving crisis. And thirdly, be a non-governmental civic initiative that coordinates with the town's COVID-19 task force where appropriate. For example, we have a ton of youth out of school, out of college, who are roaming around the streets because they have a lot of energy and need something to do. Hopefully this roundtable will be able to develop virtual activities and provide necessary psychological or other support services in order to ensure that these individuals, the youth, are not forgotten. Similarly with elderly residents. So with that, I'd like to ask Mr. Vitolo, our state representative, to give us a brief rundown of activities at the state level with respect to this crisis. Mr. Vitolo, you there?
I think he's requested we play his video.
Okay.
Good evening and happy St. Patrick's Day. As the grandson of Leona Cunningham Kelly and someone who studied at Dublin City University in Ireland, I will not miss the opportunity to celebrate St. Patrick's Day, if only at home with my wife and 2 children. I want to thank Select Board Chair Green, the other Select Board members, and Town Administrator Mel Kleckner for inviting me this evening to give an update on what the state is doing in conjunction with the town.
Guess we don't have fast internet. No, it's buffering, right?
Where do you see yourself in 5 years?
Oh my God, what's going on here? Okay. Devin, what's going on?
This is Tommy. If the video is not working, I can do my best to read the statement over the telephone if that's helpful.
That would be very helpful.
Okay, I will trust they will suspend the video recorded earlier, and I will just read it from here. As I was saying, my name is Representative Solo, and I want to thank not just the select board and Mel, but all of the town staff working to put this together, as well as Brookline Interactive Group, suddenly dropping in all of the necessary IT to make this work is a challenge, and I hope that everyone will be a little forgiving in addition to all of the traditional town business. Dealing with COVID-19 and adjusting the way we do our meetings to deal with it on short notice is not so easy, and I encourage the town and others to stick with it. Thank you also to Governor, Speaker DeLeo, and Senate President Spilka for working so hard and so quickly on this at the state level. I actually have quite a bit to report. I will try to do so quickly and then be available for questions. I want to begin with what the state is doing for those who are already sick. A few things. Number one, no elective no elective surgeries, for better or for worse, are being permitted. The idea is to save medical capacity for both COVID-19 and all of the other medical requirements day to day. There has been an expedition of processing for reciprocal nursing license applications, as well as the ability, it looks like, just as of this afternoon, for those whose licenses have recently expired, for example, if a nurse was retiring or a doctor, to come back in and continue to practice medicine to help us with this circumstance. Hospital and medical systems are ramping up, increase the capacity where possible. Insurers are required to cover telemedicine related to COVID-19 without copay, and in general, telemedicine is more available for other issues as well. And so if you do have a medical appointment, in general, I encourage you to reach out to your doctor and see if you can do it over the telephone or using video to avoid the trip. It may be possible and it may be worth doing. Mass Health has expanded home visit coverage and is paying for testing as well. Moving on to talk about what the state is doing to help people not get infected. As you know, many of these public and private schools are closed for 3 weeks, up through including Monday, April 6th. This does not include all universities and colleges, and it does not include special education schools, both residential and day schools. Those are on a case-by-case basis. Restaurants statewide are limited to takeout and delivery services only. The gatherings are limited to 25 people. That includes both indoor and outdoor confined spaces. Of course, Brookline may have stricter guidelines, but statewide, the limitation is 25, including inside stores, although grocery stores and pharmacies are exempt. Assisted living facilities and medical facilities have severely restricted visitation guidelines. If you want to go visit a loved one, I encourage you to call ahead and confirm that that is even possible at this time in an effort to restrict the spread. There is a real effort to restrict the visitation. MBTA has reduced hours, roughly speaking. It is Saturday hours, although the Blue Line continues to have full service because they found that when they went back to Saturday hours on the Blue Line in particular, they had tremendous pressure. The State House is closed to visitors. Essential personnel in both the executive and legislative branch continue to work at the State House where necessary, but even, dare I say, the Speaker and Senate President are getting more and more comfortable with teleconferencing. I want to talk briefly about what the state has done to provide supports for people impacted but not infected. As part of public utilities, it's put a moratorium on gas and electric utility shutoffs until further notice. The RMV has extended renewal timelines for most licenses. If your license is expiring, do call and confirm that you have essentially a 60-day extension. I believe this does not apply to CDLs, but does apply to licenses more typically had by residential members of the public. There is a lessening of requirements and expanding access for unemployed unemployment. Furthermore, unemployment benefits are available to a worker who is quarantined or who leaves work out of fear of exposure, as well as to family members who are infected, in some cases without medical documentation. This is an evolving circumstance, and I think that we will see unemployment benefits expanded and restrictions reduced more so in the next few days. So if you are an employer or a former employee, please look into this and try to stay up to date so that you can avail yourself of any and all benefits that you deserve. Additionally, there's $10 million in small business loans being made available by the Commonwealth. The loans are up to $75,000 with no payments for the first 6 months. I encourage you, if you are a small business in Brookline, to look into this and see if it's right for you. I want to talk briefly about things that the state has not done yet, but might do. And I want to emphasize to the board, don't bang on these things. These are ideas. We still have the rule of government and law. The legislature must find some amount of consensus, and laws must be signed by the governor or overruled. And so the things I'm talking about now, we're working on, but may change their final form or not ultimately be implemented at all. To help those who are affected, again, there's work to expand the ability for folks to practice medicine in Massachusetts who wouldn't typically be permitted. Another example is allowing folks who have licenses in other states who happen to be in Massachusetts to practice here. We may see the creation of new hospital beds either in existing medical facilities or in facilities that aren't currently medical facilities. And we may see the dedication of certain hospitals or medical facilities to focus solely on treated COVID-19 patients. Furthermore, we may see even greater expansion on medical coverage for testing and for treatment. It looks right now that all insurers must cover with no copay, both testing and treatment. But we may see more progress there. It's a bit of a TBD. What the state might do in the future to further reduce the spread, I filed a bill this afternoon that would allow local cities and towns executive branch, that is to say mayors, select boards, and so forth, to further restrict businesses beyond what the governor has ordered, specifically to require businesses within that jurisdiction, within that municipality, to change their operating parameters, their hours, and indeed to force closure of businesses beyond what the governor has done, again, on a municipality by municipality basis. Furthermore, there's, I think, a potential that we will see stay-at-home orders. Some counties in Northern California already have stay-at-home orders. Watching what has happened, in fact, in Spain, in France, in Italy, I don't think that we have reached the limit of the restrictions on society in order to help control the spread of this virus. So more to come there, I suspect, to be determined. For people who are not yet infected, more supports are being actively discussed. For example, legislation to stop evictions during the crisis, perhaps also to support small landlords, the mom-and-pop landlords, so to speak. There's a push to waive the 1-week waiting period for unemployment payments so that those who are unemployed get support immediately. There's also a bill to establish a grant fund to support those who are quarantined or impacted by COVID-19. Finally, I want to discuss pending legislation around municipal government. This is probably not especially interesting to many of the viewers at home, but it's really important to make sure that we can continue to operate as a municipal government on issues related both to COVID-19 and everything else that's important in our municipality. As you know, the open meeting law has been relaxed, which allows it to take place online, meetings to take place online and remotely. We're part of how this meeting is being conducted, critically important to allow business to go on in a way that is more safe. Regarding elections, some elections have been postponed. For example, Wellesley had a local election that was to happen today. It did not happen. My understanding is a court order paused that election, though I'm not certain. The Secretary of the Commonwealth, Secretary Galvin, has announced that anyone is allowed to vote absentee using COVID-19 as a valid medical reason, and people are encouraged to do so. Furthermore, if you are unable to use the website to request an absentee ballot, it is perfectly allowable to write on a piece of paper all of the information necessary to request an absentee ballot and mail it to the town clerk with a signature. Really, the Secretary has been clear that he expects his office and town clerks to bend over backwards to assist with absentee balloting, and I will say editorially that I, Tom Vitolo, encourage everyone voting in Massachusetts anytime soon to go ahead and do it by absentee. With respect to town meeting, there's current legislation kicking around, still some to be drafted, with consultation of the Moderators Association and several other organizations to do any and all of the following. One, to allow for 30-day extensions of town meeting. Two, to permit select boards to postpone town meeting beyond June 30th. Three, to permit the adoption of lower quorum rules. Four, to permit month-to-month spending into FY21 based on prior fiscal years with no budget. 5, permit towns to access their free cash balance for FY21. And 6, to authorize a 3-year amortization period for deficit spending incurred as a result of COVID-19. I want to emphasize that everything I just mentioned is in proposal stage. It is not law. And even if it becomes law, it does not obligate the Brookline Select Board or any other to implement any of those items. I also want to emphasize both to members of the Select Board and Town Administrator Mel Kleckner, as well as to the general public, that I am more than happy. In fact, I encourage your opinions on these matters, big and small, overarching or detailed. You can send me an email at tommy.vitolo@mahouse.gov. That's TOMMY.V as in Victor, ITOLO @mahouse.gov. Or in some cases, it's better just to call me, 617-872-8921. That is my cell phone. You can call 24 hours a day. I know how to turn the ringer off to get my 5 or 6 hours of sleep each night. Please, if there's anything I can do on behalf of the town of Brookline or on behalf of any resident within the town, please feel free to give me a call, 617-872-8921. Thank you so much for this opportunity and for all of the work I know you are doing. And I want to thank you for demonstrating the social distancing that is so important. There's a lot of room in between the heads on my screen, and I'm delighted to see it. It's so important that we do absolutely everything we can to avoid social interactions at distances less than 6 feet. And I implore everyone, really, shelter in place, stay home, absolutely as much as you can.
Great, thank you.
With that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have, or at least promise to get back to you if I don't have the answer at the moment.
Representative Vitolo, thank you for that update of the state's actions and proposed actions. Can you provide that statement to us, and we can post it on our website, our new BrooklineCovid19.com website?
That's a fabulous idea. I actually, as you saw earlier, I pre-recorded it this afternoon at Brookline Interactive Group. It was a bit of a surreal experience because I walked in and didn't actually get to talk with another human being directly the entire time.
Okay, we'll get the video and maybe post that.
I got the video. I think
Great.
I have to post the video.
Okay, great, thank you. Any questions to Representative Vitolo from the Select Board?
I have a question.
Okay, Ms. Heller.
So, Tommy, I was looking online a little bit motor vehicle rules. And you talked about licensing, licenses which are expiring are being extended. But what about people who don't have licenses at all? I understand, our kids in Brookline kind of seem like they're rushing to get their driver's ed under their belts so they can apply for these licenses. And from what I understand, that several kids are trying to pile into a car at a time. It's really obviously the antithesis of social distancing. So, but I'm wondering whether the RMV is postponing the issuances of new licenses at this point.
Select Board Member Howard, I have not heard that they are. I share your big picture vision on this. Parents, don't let your babies go out to get driver's licenses. Now is not the time. And I know that that is an inconvenience, but we need to do our part, and that means, again, limiting as many interactions in physical space as possible. So again, I don't know the answer. I don't want to say that they are. I suspect that the R&D is still willing to do some testing at the moment, but I would strongly discourage participating in that.
Great.
This is Heather Hamilton. I do believe that there's a rule that prohibits young, new drivers from having other people that are not blood related with them in the car for the first 6 months.
Okay, we'll follow up on that.
Probably need to talk with the driving school about
Okay.
enforcing that rule, if
Okay.
that's the case.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, I'd like to, pardon me, Representative Patolo?
I was going to say, in fact, I would encourage students and parents to suspend attending those classes immediately.
Great. Okay, good idea. I'd like to move into the town meeting question period. First, I'd like to apologize for all the glitches that have accompanied this town meeting. We're in a very difficult period, a lot of challenges, and it's not going to be smooth until we have an opportunity to work through some of the issues with our infrastructure and other things. The Select Board will make sure that we have a means to have these virtual meetings in the future, and things will improve as we go forward. So, Mr. Kleckner, do we have questions from the audience?
We do have questions, and I actually have one that relates to the state representative, so I'm going to ask that first. This is a question from Facebook. I called the governor's office today to express concern and make a statement for hair salons, barbershops, nail salons be included in a shutdown. Can the state representative speak to that and what we can expect from the Commonwealth as to our directives here?
Thank you, Mel. I think I understood the question. I can't tell you what the governor is going to order in the future. I find out about it at the exact same time the general public does. The reason I filed my bill to allow individual communities to take further actions is because I share those concerns. I think that there are quite a few businesses in Brookline that have voluntarily closed, and I commend them for that. I can't come up with any reason why someone right now needs to have a haircut or have their nails done or needs to go to the gym as a public health minister. And my sense is that all these businesses should be closed for the time being. But that's not my decision to make. That is primarily the decision of the governor.
Okay.
My hope is that my legislation moves forward and allows municipalities some of that flexibility.
Yeah. Okay, I'd like to ask Dr. Jett if he could comment on the public health issues presented by barbershops, beauty salons,
Nail salons.
and et cetera. And maybe some guidance to the public.
Good evening. Thank you, Chair. I think we still have to treat hair salons just like you go into a medical office. As long as they have safe practices, in place. They practice social distancing, 6 feet. You try to minimize the disruptions that CDC has put out in the guidance in the state. Try to have some normalcy of what is going on. We've shut down pretty much everything else, except for the parks. So as long as they continue to practice safe hygiene and sanitation, I don't think it poses an issue.
Okay, so what are the safe practices that a customer of, let's say, a barber shop would have to notice being practiced when they go into the barber shop?
So one of the things is sanitation,
Right.
making sure they're doing the proper cleaning, et cetera. And that's cleaning the utensils, products they might be using. And they still would have to adhere to, there can't be no crowds greater than what we put in 10. No lines, et cetera. So I think if they adhere to that, I think that would be fine.
Okay. Another question.
We have a whole series of questions about construction work, and basically the line of questioning goes that, and many of these are from emails that people have submitted. The question goes to basically acknowledging that the mayor of Boston has shut down construction activity in the city of Boston, and wanting to know whether the town expects to do that. I will say, just out at the outset, is the select board is meeting later on this evening, and there are a number of issues, including, I'm sure they were going to address the construction issue. But up to this point, we have voluntarily asked all private parties who are doing construction in this town to cease. That was a request. We have not made that order yet, and we're considering it and evaluating it, and I'm sure we'll talk about it later this evening at the select board meeting. But at this point, we've just asked the owners of properties that are under construction to voluntarily suspend construction activities.
Great, thank you. Next question.
I have a question from Facebook, and this is a question about schools. When are Brookline students going to access school-based curriculum as opposed to suggested educational resources? So I believe we have Casey Ng Miller, who is representing the school department on the line, and perhaps she could answer that on behalf of the board.
Hi, Mel. Thanks for that. So I want to update the community and let folks know that the school district superintendent London did send out a communication to all families this afternoon earlier to share resources, guidance and information, and those resources are academic-based, and so I urge families to start there on the Public Schools of Brookline website. We have resources that are separated by grade bands, K-2, 3rd to 5th grade, 6th to 8th grade, and then within the next 24 hours, the high school will also be putting up some resources. Again, our priority right now is to keep students engaged and really tethered to the school community. With regard to access to school-based curriculum, the district and teachers union representatives are in active negotiations in terms of what expectations can and should look like from our educators. One thing we have to keep in mind is our educators are also family members, and so they have children at home, they may live with elderly parents or folks who are immunocompromised, so we also have to take into consideration what they are able to provide at the moment.
Thank you.
I have another question from email that's related to schools, and the question is, how likely will the Brookline Public Schools continue to be closed after April 7th? When will the decision be made if there isn't a further extension of school closure? In my opinion, it'll be better if the parents can get messages about closure as early as possible, and they can plan ahead, obviously, for childcare and so on.
Do we have someone on the line that could address that problem?
Casey, I guess, again.
Sure. So there is a townwide task force, and there's a couple of school representatives, including the superintendent and our coordinator of nurse services, Tricia Laham. We're working closely with Dr. Swanee Jeffoffen to really have the Department of Public Health inform us in terms of when it would be safe for both adults and children to populate our buildings again. So more to come. Of course, there's guidance that we're looking for from the Department of Early and Secondary Education and from the governor.
Yeah, thank you. It's generally very difficult to plan or guess as to what's going to happen a few weeks from now. The situation is changing very, very quickly, and we're learning so much more and more each day. So thank you for that answer. But as many things, we don't really know for certain.
There are some questions about restaurants, and I want to answer one question first, and that is there a surety of cleanliness guidelines with restaurant takeout, and are they being monitored? So I know, I'll let Dr. Jett speak. Under his jurisdiction is the inspectional services of the health department who go out and inspect food service establishments. We do it all the time. We're continuing to do it, but I'll ask Dr. Jett if you could speak specifically about that. Thank you.
Yeah, very, very important question, as we're urging people to take takeout in order to feed themselves as well as support the workers who work in these restaurants.
So thank you, Chair. Thank you. So one of the things I just want to mention real quick, for any updates or information to some of your questions, you can go to brooklinecovid19.com. That site is updated daily, and a lot of your questions can be answered there. But in terms of restaurants and inspections, we will make sure that they adhere to the cleanliness, and it's probably even better now that it's just takeout.
Thank you.
And let's see, I had a question also about a restaurant. Let me see if I can locate that. What is the process for hourly restaurant and service workers to access funds to make up for loss of wages? I think that's a question. If Representative Vitolo was on the line, is there are you aware of a process for that, or any of the board members? I am not.
No, one thing we do have through the Brookline Community Foundation programs to provide income support in certain circumstances, and there are other town agencies of this nature that we hope to be able to coordinate with in order to provide that type of income support and other supports to town workers.
Okay, next question is from Facebook. No, excuse me, from email. Could you please address how you believe we will be able to ensure the ban on lines of 10 or more people, how we will be able to ensure that if there are 10 people who or more who show up before the line progresses, what happens? And so the question, an example is if there are potentially 20 to 30 people in the Star Market on Beacon Street at Washington Square. I can't fully read it, but I think that the question is, so there's a question about lines and what happens if there's more than 10 people, and then what if there's 20 to 30 people within the Star Market itself?
Well, that's a very difficult question to answer. There's, I guess, the way I would look at it is that there's no guarantee that we can police all the lines. But what we can do is just encourage people to practice safe distancing and proper hygiene, and just be aware of the need to be farther away from people, or far enough away from people that any coughs or other things would not impact them.
I think we should also be clear to folks that that the cap that's been instituted statewide and our lower cap, statewide cap of 25, our lower cap within Brookline of just 10 people does not apply to grocery stores such as the Star Market or pharmacies. That those are exempt from that cap. With that said, I remember Dr. Jett in our previous meeting mentioning that the expectation was that these businesses would figure out a way to maintain distance between people in these lines, and if they were not able to do that, then the town would take action.
All right, thank you.
Very well. Okay, there is actually a follow-up to Dr. Jett's response about hair salons in particular, and the question is, how could you possibly cut hair from 6 feet away? Yeah. Basically, how can you do proper social distancing in an environment like a hairdresser?
So that's a good question. That's often a challenge in terms of when you go to restaurants, you got to pick up food. So how do you actually pick up your food without not being next to a person? So I can't really answer that question right now, but we will get back to you when we try to figure out how to deal with that social distancing challenge.
I would add, I don't go to barbershops anymore, but as I recall, you can just be aware of what's going on around you. Are people coughing? Is the barber coughing? Does the barber have maybe a face mask on? And just notice the hygienic practices of the barbershop in order to determine whether it's a reasonably safe place to go into. Of course, that's advice for any situation that you walk into, including in your own house. If someone's coughing in your house, you should just make sure you know what the cause of the cough is, and make sure that there's a distance between that person and other people in your family. So I mean, it's a question of in this crisis, we've got to be more alert than maybe we have been in other periods of time. And this is an example of where alertness is particularly important.
Yeah, I'd say absolutely. And as a reminder, people can have this virus as well as the flu and other viruses and be asymptomatic. So someone may not necessarily be coughing or exhibiting symptoms in any way and may still be sick and may still be able to pass this virus on. I think this is something that we'll continue to have to think about, as Dr. Jett mentioned. In the meantime, it's really important to make sure that the people who operate these businesses are practicing not just good hygiene, but extremely good hygiene, and that the people who are patronizing them are doing the exact same. But this is something. I mean, I think, as Dr. Jett mentioned, it's a really good question and something that we're going to have to think about going forward.
Yeah, I'll just add, I mean, of course, it's impossible to cut hair from 6 feet away. I'm aware of no scissors that allows for a 6 feet distance between those using the scissor than those whose hair is getting cut. We heard Representative Vitolo earlier say that he filed legislation today that allows for local authorities to take the type of action that I think the questioner is asking about, to close these types of businesses. Currently, my understanding is this board doesn't have that power, and the governor may or may not do it by unilateral action. So more to come on this.
And the point is, people still have the choice to go to these businesses. It is a personal decision. They are putting a lot on the line, I think, from my point of view. But until we have that authority, some of these businesses are going to remain open, and they will have patrons.
Next question is from Twitter, and this question...
Can I just add, before you go on to the next question, could I just add a comment here?
Yes.
So this virus, the reason it's so contagious is that when people have it, they don't know it. They are asymptomatic, as Raul said, and so they're giving it to other people, and they don't know it. And so you could go into the barbershop, and even if nobody is coughing, somebody in the shop may have it and passing it on to you. It's like the chicken pox of old. Before we had the vaccine, you could get it by just being in the house of somebody who was going to get it 3 days later. So I think that's the message to the public, is that the reason we're calling for 6-foot distancing is because of the contagion factor. And if you're contagious, you're going to be, potentially infecting people who have who are immunocompromised or elderly or they don't have the strength to fight this off. So I would urge everybody to be aware of that.
So we're pending any action by the select board. We're urging, I think, in effect, people to avoid those institutions or businesses, and if they don't or if they can't, just to be alert to what's going on around them.
Thank you. So the next question is from Twitter, and the question asks, where is the Emergency Operations Center, and can members of the public go there? Could I ask our Emergency Management Director and Fire Chief John Sullivan to answer that question?
Good evening. Yes, the Emergency Operations Center is located at the DPW Center on Hammond Street, and the quick answer is no. The Emergency Operations Center is a closed facility for emergency operations personnel only. We do have decontamination and disinfection of that facility every night, so we're limiting the number of folks that are congregating in that area and practicing the correct social distancing within the EOC itself. If and when we need spaces to congregate folks for whatever may come down the line, then you will be apprised of where that location would be. And preferably, it would be outdoors so that we're not confined in a space. And with the spring coming, hopefully that's something that we can do in the event that we have to put whatever facilities in place we need to address our needs here in town.
Thank you.
Okay. So there is a question, let's see, question on Facebook. I'm pretty sure I heard that about no parking being enforced, and can somebody confirm this? We have our Chief of Police, Andrew Lipson, here, can talk about parking. Thank you.
Good evening. As far as parking goes, we'll still be enforcing public safety offenses and violations such as fire hydrants, handicap parking, bus stops, things of that nature. We will also be enforcing the newly created 15-minute pickup and carry-out delivery spaces for our commercial areas. The three things we will not be enforcing are 2-hour parking violations, parking meters, and overnight parking ban.
Can you just expand quickly on what those 15-minute pickup spots are?
Sure. They've been posted by the Transportation Department. They're throughout the commercial areas of town, and they're designated spaces where people can come for 15 minutes to help patronize our restaurants in a takeout fashion. It's deliberate parking for them and also for delivery drivers.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions related to public health. A number of them. Let's see. Will free tests be available at the health department or town hall? And stay up here, Dr. Jett, because I'm going to ask a few health-related questions.
Currently, thank you, Town Administrator. Currently, the answer is no.
So can you advise people anything about testing?
So any information on testing, and of course this would be updated daily, is at brooklineCovid19.com.
Do you have any general guidance about if somebody feels like they're sick and they need a test, who they should call?
So if someone is sick at this current time, they need to call their PCP, and their PCP will direct them to the resource they have. I don't have all the commercial sites in front of me, but it has been expanded. And before, they were only testing people that were with severe symptoms, but since then, there have been more test kits available, so more people can get tested now.
And Dr. Jett, what about those folks that don't have a primary care physician that usually just use urgent care, maybe are uninsured?
They will show up at the ER, alert the ER ahead of time. One key thing that they need to be alert the ER. What are their symptoms, and if they were possibly exposed to somebody that had COVID-19. That raises them up to the priority list to get testing.
Thank you.
Thank you. So another Facebook question. Each day, the number of coronavirus cases reported by the state increases. Are these numbers the current number of active cases? I would hope by this time some folks have recovered, and if so, has anyone heard what the time frame is between being diagnosed to full recovery?
So the case count is updated by the state health department at 4 p.m. every day. If a person is tested positive, they're in isolation, 14 days after that, they can be released. The latest guidance was after 2 negative tests within 24 hours. But I'm sure that will modify as time goes on. I heard there was a conference call today at 3. I will update that guidance on the website, so it'll be up there tomorrow.
And I guess that we're going to have more and more cases as we do more and more testing. So.
Correct.
Right, okay.
Yeah, the more you test, the more you find.
All right.
I'm going to go to a question about, it says, I am a part of Mutual Aid Brookline. We have set up a system for people that are desperate for childcare because they cannot otherwise go to work. These are the people working at CVS and other necessities like this. We facilitate essential conversations around levels of danger both parties are comfortable with, but inevitably there is risk. We are doing our very best, but is there advice you can provide for us as we supply this essential service, which in this case is childcare?
So first, let me make sure I finish responding to the other question, because I don't know if I did an adequate enough job. So yes, anybody that has been isolated, that has been infected, will be released from isolation once we have a negative test or they have completed the 14 days. If somebody was just exposed, they never had symptoms, they had a negative test, and they were just quarantined, they are released after 14 days as well. So reflecting back on child care, it is a very essential service. Currently in Brookline, we have recommended that all child cares be closed at this time. And so I don't know if any that is currently still open. At least it has not been reported to me as such.
So this Mutual Aid Brookline organization is providing some type of assistance in the area of child care. How are they regulated, or are they regulated?
So pretty much all child care now is regulated by the state.
Right.
We do have a local liaison that works with them.
Okay.
And how do we deal with safe distancing, et cetera? It's the same issue you have.
So I guess my question, maybe not a question, but a statement, that it looks like this is an example of an attempt by the community to address an important issue that's sort of falling between the cracks of our regulatory scheme. And maybe we need to look into that and make sure that whatever is being provided safely, both in the context of child care generally, but also in the context of the COVID-19 virus that we're facing.
Yeah. So I could follow up tomorrow with the staff.
Okay.
And do a check-in to see what agencies are still open at this point.
Well, and I think the risk here is that very well-intentioned people are trying to provide a private service, between friends, between people who have a level of trust. But the reality is not everything is closed, and some people are expected to report to work that have young children. And these people are probably associated with the healthcare system, and they're stuck between a rock and a hard place. So how do we tell them to do it fairly safely in the meantime before I think everything starts to be shut down, including maybe hospitals?
So if you may, let me address that.
Yes.
This is the part about our community that we haven't fully addressed, because you do have a part of the population that is vulnerable, that is marginalized, and don't have the funds not to work. Mm-hmm. They don't have 6 months of rent or of their salary in the bank. The jobs have not shut down. As I drove into Brookline today, there were many cars on the road driving to Brookline, at least on my way to Brookline. But once I arrived in Brookline, there was no cars in Brookline. So all the cars was on the way from Mattapan through Boston to here. So that's a large part of the medical community, probably whatever business is still open, that they cannot shut down, because if they do, they might be out of business. So that's a tough question on how do we address the child care issue when people still have to work, and they don't have a stimulus package today.
So the Community Leadership Roundtable should take that issue up. Yeah, I'm not sure that everyone has thought about that, who are out there helping vulnerable people.
Yeah, maybe we can strategize best practices in sanitization, like how often everything needs to be wiped down.
Yeah.
I'm going to keep on while Dr. Jett is up there with some health-related questions. Of the 1,367 tests that Massachusetts has reported having been done, how many were on Brookline residents?
I don't have that number in terms of how many were conducted in Brookline. That number is not reported to me.
Okay, so we do not have that information. Were the if children of parents were tested positive for COVID, were the children tested as well?
I mean, if parents were tested.
I'm saying,
So
were the children of parents who tested positive tested as well? Sorry.
So if they were exposed to a case, they would be. If they were not, they wouldn't be unless they became symptomatic. And that test would be done at the hospital or wherever they go at that time.
And then a follow-up, were these children allowed to go to school?
That's a negative.
That is no. Okay, thank you very much. I'm going to go back and ask a school question. Will the schools be turning kids away from picking up to-go bags if they don't have full documentation and or their parents didn't complete the order form correctly? Casey, if you're still here, I'd appreciate you answering that question.
Sure, I'm there. So I spoke with Matt Gillis, who's our Director of Operations today, who's overseeing that process, and the short answer is no. We are not going to turn away any students or families coming to the schools for the grab and go bags. We will also have applications on hand for families who may not have previously qualified for grade reduced lunch, but because of lost wages, potentially may qualify now, so that we can qualify families now so that they continue to receive all of the benefits through the grade reduced lunch program.
Thank you.
There's still one more for Dr. Jett, I think, and I'm sorry, I didn't see this one. It just popped up, but I think it's important. It says, I want to be clear, does Brookline have any locations where we can get free testing? And do we have to call the COVID-19 hotline for guidance?
So right now, I don't know of any sites that's providing free testing. But anything that's up on our COVID-19 website, we will make sure that when those tests become available, because really right now they're only testing if you're symptomatic. So they're not testing if you're not symptomatic.
But I think you said earlier that any testing would be as a result of a visit to a primary care physician, not someone just feeling ill and walking into a test site.
Correct.
I mean, there's always going to be some medical nexus between the test and the person wanting a test.
Correct. So because I want to clear, because people just can't show up and say I want a test.
Right.
That you have to be symptomatic.
And symptomatic as determined by your primary care physician or other health specialists, right?
Okay, let me go to some questions on Twitter. Will Brookline begin to have a curfew, and if so, when?
Well, we don't have, that's not on our agenda yet. We'll see what the task force, the COVID-19 task force thinks is appropriate. And at that point, the select board would consider that.
I would like to say that just on its face, I'm against a curfew. What I could see happening is a stay-at-home order. I don't see the difference between telling people to stay home, after 10 p.m. If they're allowed to roam around during the day. So for me, it's an all or nothing kind of deal.
Okay. Again, that's a very difficult question, and we have the COVID-19 task force to look at all the aspects of it, consequences, unintended consequences, as well as known consequences, and come up with a proposed solution or proposed way of addressing it.
A similar question, or another question was, will the closures be extended past early April? I believe that question was answered that we don't know, and there's too many variables in order to answer that question definitively. And then there was a question, will we be able to put a freeze on rent for people who are out of work at this time?
That's not a question. Is Representative Vitolo on the line? Because I think that's a state issue, and there is some talk of freezing evictions. I don't know what a freeze on rent would mean, but I think the state is considering, or at least there's talk of freezing evictions. Is Representative Vitolo still on the line?
So he had to get off the phone. He
Okay.
he had a meeting with some legislative leaders, a phone call. But if folks have questions, again, he gave his cell phone number and his email address at the front of the meeting. The email address is tommy.vitolo@mahouse.gov. And we'll try and gather information and pass it along as it becomes available.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, there are a series of questions related to, worker pay, unemployment compensation, rent, and other things like that. So I think the answer is those are probably not local initiatives. Those have to be done at the statewide level. And as Select Board Member Franco said, Representative Vitolo is happy to answer your questions about that.
I want to add one more thing there, too, if I could. Received the message earlier from Kara Bruton, who is the director of our Economic Development Division. We do have on Thursday morning from 9 to 10 a.m. a virtual town hall hosted by the Small Business Development Committee and focused on the impact of COVID-19 on small businesses, owners, and employees in Brookline. They are closely following all the moves that are happening at the federal and state level. So Kara will be on that call to speak to some of these issues. She also wanted to make sure that I plugged the business resources and information page, which is on the Brookline website. So if you were to search Brookline Business Resources and Information, you would see right at the top of the page resources for businesses impacted by COVID-19, as well as emergency assistance for businesses, including unemployment assistance and other programs. That site will be developed, will be updated as things develop. So please keep an eye on that website. And if you are either a business owner or an employee in the town of Brookline that's been impacted by COVID-19, we encourage you to sign on to that virtual town hall, 9 to 10 a.m. on Thursday, the details of which are on the town calendar. So if you went to the Brookline website and clicked on calendar, for this Thursday, you would see all the details there, including how to click to join the video conference.
Thank you.
I think I have a question for me, finally. Let's see. Are we still able to pay our annual town bills, such as vehicle excise taxes, in person at Town Hall? And if not, will the online convenience fees be waived due to social distancing? Well, so I do want to report that effective tomorrow, we are going to close the Town Hall to the public. That doesn't mean that we won't be in here working, but we are trying very hard to protect our own employees and the public. So all of our services will be by phone, by email, or online at our webpage, brooklinema.gov. Bills certainly can be put in the mail. We're still going to get mail, as far as I know. So we urge people to do that. There is a Dropbox, a secure Dropbox where people can put in their bills in person. And they get, they're secure, and we empty them every day. I'm not exactly sure if that location is within the lobby or not, but we'll try to get that outside if possible. If not, people are encouraged to pay by mail. And as long as those options are not there, I don't think we'll be waiving the online fee. But if for some reason people are unable, for example, if mail service got discontinued, we'd certainly strongly consider waiving online fees.
So that lockbox, the drop slot, is outside of the lobby. It's right at the front doors of Town Hall,
Thank you, Ben.
I think it's right to the right-hand side.
So to be clear, there is a drop box, a secure drop box that one can put their bills in there without putting a stamp on, and those would be collected each day and processed. So, very well. Okay.
Thank you.
Yes. Let's see. So then the question I think I can answer again was who chose who was on the COVID task force? So, I think there's been a lot of confusion about what a task force is and what they were. I created the task force as an immediate emergency measure to deal with things that, we were having a hard time. They were coming fast and furious. And so I convened a task force of staff people only, people who could implement decisions quickly. And they included the Director of Public Health, the Chief of Police, the Fire Chief was also the Emergency Management Director, and the Interim Superintendent of Schools. And then there were other people who, and myself, and there are other people who came in and out of the task force, but it was essentially an emergency type of a situation that couldn't wait for example, the Select Board to convene. Now, the Select Board is convening on a regular basis, and I think the policy issues associated with the community are being taken care of by the board. They're being considering those, but initially, when decisions had to be made very quickly and implemented quickly, that was a staff responsibility, which I assumed.
Yeah, I think the board is also looking to the task force for direction in terms of, what is the latest information, what are the latest ideas in terms of how to address this crisis. So it still plays a very important role while we deliberate and make policy decisions.
Someone did follow up and say, is this new news about the town hall being closed effective Wednesday? It is. It is new news. We have really tried hard to stay open the last couple of days. It's been our experience that many of the patrons who are coming in, it's not emergency. They can be done online or by phone or by appointment. We're very worried about social distancing and exposure to our employees, just like everyone else. So we believe we have the measures by phone, email, by our online portal, or if all that can't be dealt with, we will make appointments to meet with people in person beginning tomorrow.
Okay, thank you.
Again, there's another question that some people are worried about ordering takeout food and want very much to support local businesses, but concerned about the spread of virus. And is there a way that the public can be assured that it's safe to support local businesses by ordering takeout? I believe that question was answered. Our Inspectional Services Division in the Health Department is still out there inspecting restaurants for cleanliness. It's something we've always done and we will continue to do through this crisis as long as there's food being sold in this community.
Thank you.
Can I add one thing also related to the 15-minute parking? Just a note to folks that are watching, it'll be most effective if you order in advance, and if you arrive well after your order, you would expect it to be ready so that you can just park very quickly. Some businesses I've seen are actually offering to even bring it out to your car, which is pretty nice of them to do that and really helpful. So if you can do that, that would be terrific. And also, if you can order during non-peak times, if everyone orders dinner at 7 p.m., it's going to take quite a while for your food to be ready. So if you can also, some of us at least, can order during non-peak times, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
There is a question that we have here, and that says, in addition to this COVID-19 meeting, there's also a 6:30 p.m. Select Board meeting scheduled for today. Should we expect to see that only on this Facebook live stream and not on YouTube? I think that is accurate. My understanding was there was a problem with Big's connection with YouTube, so it's on Facebook live stream, but it's also appearing, my understanding is on the local access channels on Comcast and RCN.
Thank you.
Bear with me for a moment.
I think we can take just a few more questions. It's 6:25, and our select board meeting will start shortly.
Okay. This question says, would it be possible to view decisions through justice lenses? And I am concerned that issues pertaining to the poor and people of color are not fully baked into the decision-making process. I'm glad that you're closing town hall.
We of course, always take into consideration justice issues, even in a very difficult situation like this.
Well, let's see. I think, given the amount of time, there are some questions that are hard to answer, or that have been asked in some different ways. I'm just going to pose them, and I'm going to say that we're going to try very hard to answer questions that have been asked. We are collecting all questions through all different forums, and we're trying to put together the answers on our COVID-19 webpage. So again, that's brooklinecovid19.com. Is that right?
Yep.
And but let me just give you a flavor of some of the questions that people are asking. There's a lot of feeling that the answers we're providing are not consistent with answers that they're getting from other sources, including the state, and are concerned that where are we getting our information, and why are they inconsistent? And I think it's hard to explain or answer that without diving deeper. But I just want to assure people that the folks on our task force are constantly monitoring all of the information from the official sources. Dr. Jett is a epidemiologist, and he has people that are consulting with him. So, but I understand people are feeling that some of his advice is not either consistent, or they feel it's somewhat incorrect. But he will be answering questions online, so make sure you look at those. And then again, a lot of questions about concerns around non-essential businesses, and why don't we just close them down right now? And also, if we do close them down, concern about the economic well-being of the employees. So those are a lot of questions, and let me see if I have any others. Still more on education resources, not just curriculum, but how about educational resources? So these are some of the things that folks are very concerned about. There was finally a question said someone felt it impossible to watch this online, or couldn't get it online, and will this entire thing be posted and published in readable form, and where? I think all the questions that are being asked and answered are going to be posted on our COVID website, but this is not going to be repeated, is it, this video? The video, I'm told, is on the website. So, yes, the answer is yes, the Brookline COVID website.
Great, thank you.
Maybe just before we go, I did see one other question, just wanted to confirm. I mean, my very good non-medical not diagnosis, what I said earlier about asymptomatic folks being able to spread, and I think they want Dr. Jett to be able to confirm that. That people who are asymptomatic, who are not showing symptoms, can indeed spread COVID-19.
And by what mechanism would they spread it?
So, thanks for coming back. I don't want to share some bad information, but I would give you what is current. I can't talk for what the state does or what CDC does, because usually, Brookline, we're more progressive. So we try to lean forward on it. But so, to answer your question, there's a 1% chance that an asymptomatic person can spread it. I haven't known, it's been very rare. According to the latest documents at CDC, that really doesn't happen that often. The problem is there's a lot of conflicting information when you go to CNN, you look at different channels, but I actually got that from CDC website, And also the World Health Organization, they did a joint venture with China. 1% of people was asymptomatic that spread it, and they still never confirmed if it was spread through fecal form.
That said, we're still recommending, of course, despite that fact, that people keep a distance from one another. 1% chances, 1% chances, and we're still learning a lot about this. And for right now, we're recommending that social distancing.
The social distance is key. People should only go outside the home for essentials. And to take a walk is good mental health. But in terms of socializing with other people, inviting friends over, having play dates, those things shouldn't be going on.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Thanks for everybody who was helping put these together and for the public who was asking the questions. Appreciate it very much.
And again, this is virtual town meetings. Virtual meetings are something new for us. It's going to be not perfect the first few times, but we're getting there, and this will be probably the way that we're going to be meeting going forward for at least the next few months, and who knows how much longer beyond then. So, thank you.
So will we just